welcome to Kristina's Corner. I'm Kristina, and I'm here today with Emma Baccellieri. I'm sorry, is that how you say it?
Yeah, no, that's pretty close.
How do you actually say it?
Baccellieri.
Baccellieri. Okay. Let's redo then. All right. Hi, guys. It's Kristina. Welcome to Kristina's Corner. I'm here with Emma Baccellieri, and she is the author of the Sports Illustrated article that came out recently about the hobby. Emma, thank you so much for agreeing to sit down with me today.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for having me. Excited to chat.
Yeah, for sure. So first question everyone wants to know, do you collect cards?
You know, I had collected as a kid, and until I did this story and decided I wanted to start working on this, I'd kind of fallen out of it for a long time. But working on this kind of sparked it again and had me thinking that maybe I'll get more into it. So, yeah.
What did you collect when you were a kid?
I just did baseball cards, and I think probably pretty common. I'm in my mid-20s, so that period of like late 90s, early 2000s, just getting packs of cards at like Target and Walmart, and just kind of without any idea of what they meant besides knowing that I liked baseball and I liked the feeling of finding out what I got. And I grew up a Cleveland Indians fan, so always looking out for those. But yeah, I was never very serious about it. It was just something I did for fun that I kind of fell out of when I was like a teenager. But yeah, something I always had really fond memories of for sure, and had a lot of fun with as a kid.
All right. And why did you choose to write an article about the hobby? Was it an assignment given to you by an editor or a supervisor, or was it something that you pitched to them?
It was something that I pitched. It was just something where I'm a national baseball writer, so I don't have a specific beat. I'm always kind of looking for stuff that's a little bit off the beaten path. That's not, like straightforward game coverage or stuff like that. And so, it was something where I, like I said, I'd been interested in this as a kid, but I'd kind of fallen out of it. But I felt like recently I'd been just seeing more and more about cards over the last year, 2 years, where, it felt like I realized there had always been a strong niche there, but it felt like it was just getting bigger and bigger. And I thought, that there has to be something there that could work for a mainstream audience. Like it seems like it's really just grown so much. And so I kind of I put it on my radar and I was like, I'd like to do something with this at some point. And I ended up in the Dallas area at the beginning of February for a different story. I was working on a story about the Rangers' new stadium. And I saw when I was there that, it just so happens literally the day before I had my tour of the Rangers stadium scheduled, they were holding this million card rip party that Topps was doing at the Cowboy Stadium. And I was like, oh, well, that's just too perfect. I can't pass that up. I think this is my entry into this. And so, yeah, and long story short, it was supposed to be a story I was doing for opening day. But opening day never happened because all of sports shut down.
Right.
So at that point, I kind of was like, okay, I had good material from attending that event. I still want to do something that's a big look at where the industry and the hobby is right now. And it just so happened that it was actually, bubbling up even more with people stuck at home and people, tapping more into their hobbies. And so that made it just even a better hook, because people had even more to say when I went back to them a couple of weeks later.
Yeah. So you pitched it after you had already gone to the million card rip?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So all of your interviews and research was done at the event. Is that correct?
Yeah. And then much later when I realized, there's no opening day, this is going to look a little different. I then went back to 5 or 6 breakers to talk about what their sales and their viewership had been like since the pandemic. But yeah, it was pretty much, I had an idea of what I was walking into when I went to the event, but a lot of it was just kind of learning while I was there and seeing just what it looked like up close.
Yeah. And then adapting the story to this huge shift in like everyday life that we've all been dealing with. That's really interesting. As I said, I'm really glad you wrote the story. The Million Card Rip was a fantastic event. And it was really interesting to see your perspective as a mainstream news journalist reporting on the hobby that my listeners and I all love. So thank you for writing the article. Do you think that sports cards are coming into or coming onto the radar of mainstream news in a way that hasn't before? And do you think that perchance we might see a future of updates and other magazines or newspapers covering it like Sports Illustrated did with your article?
I think we might be. I can't really speak to what it was like in the heyday of like the 80s when it was really exploding for that first time. So I'm not sure what mainstream coverage looked like then, but certainly, in my adult lifetime, this seems like the most popular I've ever seen it, at a point where it is more of it has become more mainstream. I think like that was something that surprised me a little when I wrote the piece, that, I knew that the people who are passionate about it are really passionate about it. But I had friends and other readers, people who, I knew liked sports, but I didn't know like sports cards, reaching out and being like, oh yeah, like actually, I watch breaks all the time. I've been working on my collection the last couple of years. This is something I've gotten back into recently. And I had no idea that there were that many people that I already knew that were into it. And I think it's certainly with what I wrote, I felt like I got a really nice response. It seemed like there was, just a big audience waiting to be tapped into there. And I know that there already is like really robust hobby media, that obviously a lot of people are covering this for passionate people all the time. But I think it does seem like it's getting to a level where even for, more mainstream audiences who maybe aren't keeping up as much with the, regular day-to-day stuff of it, who don't collect as seriously or haven't collected in years, I think it does seem like, at least from the response I got with what I did here and, how welcoming everyone it was, an opportunity for there to be more of that coverage.
Yeah. And do you think that it'll continue even after sports leagues come back and everyone has their own their sports team to watch? And I know a lot of the attention now is on something that people can do while at home, right? So once the world starts up again, do you think that momentum that it's building right now will continue?
I think it definitely will. I think that was actually something that someone said. I can't remember who it was, but one of the people I talked to when I was reporting this, in the weeks after the start of the pandemic, said that he felt like the hobbies that people found during this time were probably going to be ones that they felt like a deep attachment to, which I think is true. Like, obviously it's a really uncertain time for everyone, and it's hard to say what the other side of this is going to look like. But I think the stuff that people lean on during this time is probably going to be stuff that you stick with, like recognizing that if cards were a place where you found some joy during this time, or even just, some distraction, just something to get away from everything, I think it makes sense that people are going to want to keep tapped into that and have like an even stronger bond to that than they might have had if they found it under different circumstances. And yeah, I think in general, it seems like a lot of trends right now have kind of been sped up by the current situation, but they were already existing trends. And so I think, yeah, like even before this, we were seeing more growth in terms of the people who were finding it and people who were getting back into collecting cards. And I imagine that there's a good chance that only continues, even when people can, leave their houses and watch actual sports leagues.
Yeah, very well said. So as someone who collected as a kid and then kind of fell out of the hobby and now has come back in a mostly professional setting right now, and perhaps maybe soon pick it up again as a hobby, what is your take on the hobby in our community presently?
It seems just like a really cool, welcoming community to me. That actually, like, I didn't touch on this in the piece, but one of the things I did when I was writing this was I wanted to buy into a break and to get some cards of my own, just because it felt like it was important to do that for research, but also kind of for fun and just to kind of experience it for myself. And I mean, I was expecting to enjoy it, but I was a little surprised at just how much fun I had with it. That, I guess it would have been early April when I did that. So, everything was really crazy. Stuff had been shut down for a while. I definitely was looking for more to do. And it was just so nice and comforting, I guess, that like this is something that, like I associated with being a kid, with how much I loved it then, but also with, current players who I associate with having fun with now. And just to see it in a different context with, just a pretty chill, relaxing thing to watch, and a pretty welcoming community with, like, I wasn't really participating in the live chat because I had kind of just positioned myself there to sit and watch, but just watching how people were interacting and, really embracing each other, like having fun with each other. You could tell like these are people who have real relationships here, who are doing this, every week or even every day, who are tuning in to watch this. It was just a lot of fun. I really enjoyed participating in it, like more than I thought I would. And then, when I got my cards in the mail a few days later, I was like, this is really awesome. That actually had been the one thing I'd been curious about, that I remembered with breaks particularly. Like, I remembered as a kid, I loved opening it. Like, the act of opening it was my favorite thing, which I imagine is probably true for a lot of people. Just as someone who was, like an 8-year-old excited to see what she got. And I was wondering, like, when I've already seen some of these gone through on camera, when I'm not actually ripping open a pack, what's it going to feel like to get it in the mail? Like, is it going to have the same effect as it did on me, as a kid? And it was like, oh no, like, this is still a lot of fun, even though they've now been opened. And, I had like one nice autograph card that they pulled that was in its like fancy little sleeve. Like, even with that already sorted and everything already ripped, I was like, this is still just as fun to open the envelope and go through everything that's here. And so, like, everyone was incredibly welcoming when I was working on the story. Like, I recognized I was a total outsider here, which is always something I'm cognizant of as a reporter. But it just seemed like a really fun, welcoming community with people who are really passionate about the stuff that they're working with here.
Yeah. And what was the autograph hit? Do you remember?
It was Bobby Bradley. I said earlier, I grew up as a Cleveland fan. And so I did a team break here, and I got Cleveland cards and got a Bobby Bradley autograph.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Are you going to grade it?
I don't think so. I think I'm just kind of like content with just having it, like, for me personally, accepting it with its value in my heart. But it was a lot of fun.
All right. And do you mind telling us what breaker you ended up going with?
Yeah, I actually, I did one that I didn't talk to for my story, just because I wanted to kind of keep that separate with the people I was interviewing about their business practices and who I was, using here. So I used sports box breaks.
Okay. All right. And is there anything that you felt would be beneficial to the hobby as a whole if it changed or adapted to?
That's a good question. I think I was really struck by just how welcoming it seemed like it was, and how it really was a low barrier for entry, that like even someone who didn't know a ton of the like lingo beforehand, who had been out of it for years, I felt like it was pretty easy to step back into, which I know isn't the case with every hobby. And so it was cool to see that. I think that's probably one of the biggest things with anything with getting people on board. And so, nothing really comes to mind. It was a lot of fun to dip back into.
All right. Well, thanks again for writing such an amazing article and doing such in-depth research to put together something that really reflects the hobby. Because I think that sometimes, unfortunately, people look at it and they don't actually get the perspective of multiple people, or they come in with preconceived notions and they let that negativity guide them through their writing. So I was really happy with your article, and I know a lot of other collectors were too. So I hope you felt that as well, besides the welcome, that you felt that appreciation that we all had as a community for how you represented us and yourself as you get back into the hobby. Is there anything you have, like any questions you have for me about the hobby? Anything at all?
What has your experience with it been? Is this like, has it been like a lifelong thing for you, or did you come back to it?
Yeah, so I actually collected comic books as a kid. I was a comic book nerd. So tomboy comic book nerd, but never got into cards, was more focused on playing on the soccer fields myself. So it was something that I actually picked up in 2016 when I went home with my boyfriend after graduating college. And he was cleaning out his childhood room, and he started going through all of his basketball cards. And I was like, this looks like a lot of fun, but I want to rip my own. So we hit up all the Walmarts and Targets in the area and bought a bunch of packs. And I was very late to the party, but like yourself, your 8-year-old self, like very excited to hit big cards and like see the awesome designs. And then I really focus more on the art aspect of a card. I do have players that I collect, being Luka Doncic and Michael Jordan. Nice. Those cards get kind of expensive. So I started collecting other players just for the art, like for some of the cards. And I started a podcast with my boyfriend and our co-host, Brian, in 2018. 2018. And it's called The House of Jordans. And then I started guest breaking at our local card shop. And I do that sometimes when they let me come in. It's a lot of fun. Obviously, right now, I'm not guesting anywhere because and then recently I created this spin-off Kristina's Corner because I wanted to talk to influencers and do interviews with artists, card artists in the hobby, as well as people who I think I want to get to know. So I assume that listeners also want to get to know, and yourself being obviously one of them.
That's so cool.
So that's kind of been my journey.
Yeah, the art is such a good point, because that was something like for me as a kid, I knew there were different types of cards, but it was a lot more limited back then. And so it's been really cool to recognize just how many there are now, and looking at the differences in design as that's like a really great feature that you're right to point out, that has been another one of the really cool things I found. So yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, the Topps Project 2020 that they're doing right now is really cool. And I've been fortunate enough to sit down with 2 of the artists who are designing cards for that project, and hopefully more to come, but scheduling conflicts and all that. So, but yeah, so hopefully we get more of those out, because that's what I really enjoy about cards is I don't have art on my walls, but I keep my art in a shoebox. So yeah, so it's been a fun experience in the hobby, and I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that is really, really cool.
Yeah, thanks. All right. Well, thank you once again, Emma. It was such a pleasure to talk to you. I want to be cognizant of your time and let you go. But thank you so much for being on Kristina's Corner.
Yeah, thank you so much. I had fun.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for listening and tuning in. Make sure to come back next week for more news and influencers.